Hey everyone, it's Saoirse. And you know, when you find a book and kind of the second you start reading it, you realize, oh, this is going to change my life. This is going to become one of my favorites immediately. Well, I found a book like that, and it is called Little Weirds by Jenny Slate. This book was published in 2019, and I did not realize who the author was until after I'd read it and looked her up and went, she looks really familiar. Um, it just, the whole time I was reading it, had no clue that I had watched her on a TV show before. So connecting that in my head was really confusing. But I'm kind of glad I didn't know who it was. She was just an anonymous woman to me, and it allowed me to really connect with it and see myself in it in a very profound way that we're going to talk about extensively. This will be a really long video, so buckle in. So my friend told me about this book like 6 months ago, and I'd also seen a quote from it floating around the internet, and the section that my friend sent me I loved, and I said, oh, I've got to go get this book. But you know, like, when you know that you're going to love a book a lot, I don't know if anybody else does this, I kind of put off reading it for a while because I'm waiting until I'm ready to have my life changed. Like, she sent me one chapter and I was like, I don't think I'm ready yet to have my life changed. So I just waited and marinated on it until suddenly there was this thing in me that was like, buy that book, you have to go find that book now. And I did, and I devoured it. And it is the kind of book that alters my brain chemistry and makes me want to completely give up writing and also never stop writing, because this is the book that I wish I had written. She puts into words so many thoughts that I've never been able to articulate, and she's a comedian and an actress and many things, but I personally, I think it's so interesting how people interpret things differently based on their own mental state. I didn't find this funny. I found it very, very highly emotional and just really evocative of a lot of feelings that I have had. And yeah, so I laughed out loud one time, but the rest of the time I was just in this deep, like, meditative state. And I haven't even told you what this is about because it's really hard to say what it's about. It's kind of like little memoir essays with a dash of magical realism, which, you know, I normally can't stand. But she did it in such a way that was so beautiful and lyrical and poetic that I was along for the ride. But it's about her life, and each chapter is a different topic or scene, and you know, it's not necessarily chronological, it's not an autobiography, it is very hard to pin down. It's just little vignettes that are all equally gorgeous, and I really hope you read it. So there's not really spoilers in here because the plot isn't like a normal plot of a book, and unless you are like me and you want to read a gorgeous sentence for the first time on your own, then there's nothing to worry about being spoiled. So I have 4,000 quotes we're going to read. Let's hope my voice holds up, and let's hope my camera holds up. So I'm going to read you the whole first little vignette. It's called Treat. And when we read this, you'll see that we are just like, boom, we're in it. We get a taste for what this book is going to be like. One of my fantasy dimensions is, strangers on the street see me and think I might be French. You are a stranger. You see me, and you think that there I am, a French woman, and then you look at me and allow a deeper kind of feeling sight to occur, and you see past the woman, and you sense that I am actually a homemade Parisian croissant, and I was born in a kitchen, in a house with cool stone floors and deep windowsills that hold the light in the shape of a big box, windowsills that are so deep that they could be a desk. I was born as a breakfast pastry in the fancy part of France, and hours after I was born I was still warm from the heat of the oven. I knew that my warmth and lovely shape were the result of thoughtful and gentle work. Oh, please feel it. I am the croissant that felt its own heat and curves and wished to become a woman, and I am that woman from the wish. Let me be your morning treat with your coffee. Disregard the fear that I am too rich to be an ordinary meal. Allow my antique decadence into your morning, into your mouth. Pair me with jam. Treasure me for my layers and layers of fragility and richness. Name me after a shape that the moon makes. Have me in a hotel while you are on vacation. Look at me and say, oh, I really shouldn't, just because you want to have me so very much. There are so many times when I want to be here just for your consumption, just to satisfy your appetite. This is what I feel I am intended for. I can't help it. An intention was inside of me already when I traveled from infinity to a kitchen with a windowsill to a wish to a woman. Okay, so some people might be like, that's weird. I don't know if I can get down with that. But the people who get it will really get it, and it'll resonate. And I think it is a great, I can never think of the right damn word, but it's a great sign that George Saunders is on the front here, because he's one of my favorite writers, and I can definitely see elements of his style in this, and then that's also kind of the style that I try to emulate, this sort of simple, straightforward, but a little bit uncanny kind of writing. What else was I going to say? Oh, simply that this book has changed my life in that I felt so much better about myself just from the way that she describes being a woman and being alone and being independent, and how it's okay to live that way, and you don't have to be in love, but also honoring the pain of wanting to be in love and not finding it. It all just felt very, very validating and life-affirming. And so before we even continue, I just want to make sure you get that. This book is the act of pressing onward through an inner world that was dark and dismantled. And that's definitely how I felt when I was reading it. Like, oh, it is possible to move onward with myself and to love myself. If I am too sweet for your taste, then just clamp your mouth shut and spin on your heels. I can't add sourness to my sap anymore just to fit onto a menu in a restaurant for wimps. There's a lot of that in here about not dimming yourself, dulling yourself for anybody. And, you know, when you find a book at a time in your life when it is just ridiculously relevant, that is how I feel right now, and this is helping me heal and look at things from such a different perspective, look at myself from a different perspective, and I feel so much more love and admiration for myself than I have in a long time, and I really feel like I'm going to cry talking about it. But that's how important this book is to me already, and Jenny Slate will probably never see this, but thank you. Thank you so much. So there's so many gorgeous descriptions in this book for things that are ordinary. I was born with a ticking clock inside of me that chirped and rang out many years later, and its gears lowered my mouth open for a French kiss and made my skirt light up like a lamp with a shade saying, "Someone's awake in here, come see who it is." What a beautiful way to say that. And I can see so many times in this book where people who have a different brain would think, that's funny, that's a funny line. And I think, God, that's devastating, or it's devastatingly beautiful. And I kind of accidentally got 2 copies of this book. So, because they sent me a damaged one first. And I gave it to my mom to read, and I read the other one. And so she tabbed all these things, and it was interesting to see what stood out to her, and also to talk to her and ask her, so were you reminded of me constantly while you read this book? And she was like, yes, absolutely. I was born in the Atlantic Ocean, and I pray to goddesses that look like whales and waves, and I make tons of wishes. I was born in the day right before lunchtime, and I arrived with a full appetite, and it hasn't settled down at all. Ooh, I just love that. I know what that feels like, to be born with this appetite that is never going to settle down. When you call my parents on the phone, this is what my father will say. The tulips are really coming up. We had the rabbits eat a bunch of the bulbs, but we still managed to get so many flowers. And this is what my mother will say. It's so sad. The rabbit must have been eaten by the fox because there are so many more tulips than usual. The rabbit must have been eaten. There are too many tulips. My mother thinks that there is just one of every animal in our woods. She is living in a fable world, where there are lessons and every animal means something. I just like that observation. There's just so many little observations about things that just seem simple and maybe not worth mentioning to most people, but these are the things that are the very essence of life. So we can talk about big, grand occurrences, and sure, we might all be able to relate to that, but we can really relate to the little minutiae of life, daily life, things that our parents say, things that we notice in nature, and things that we start to notice about ourselves. And she just does a wonderful job of talking about those things as if they are far more than ordinary. They found the teeth up there in my head. I had braces for 7 years, along with a terrible speech impediment and ugly face, accompanied by horniness that had started way before that and also never went away. There are just so many lines where I'm like, I relate so much to that. An ugly face. Like, she's just so straightforward about it. Had an ugly face. And I love a woman that is so free and open and talks about her sexuality and sexual desire. I think that's so important, and I love her for that. Oof. So now there is not even anyone to dream about. And what an odd feeling. I don't have the strength to put together the features of a fantasy face. I am heartbroken over no one, over having nobody to wish for, nobody to hope for. I am heartbroken usually over someone. Now I am heartbroken over no one. This one really got to me. There's so much in here about her failed romantic relationships and moving on from, trying to please all these men that were not even doing the bare minimum for her in the relationship. And so I recently became acquainted with this term, limerence, where you basically go into a daydream that is so intense that it becomes real to you, and like you meet a stranger one time and you begin to plan your wedding. And you think about them all the time, and because you don't actually know anything about them, you can have these daydreams and fantasize that they are whatever you want them to be. And so I'll catch myself and be like, don't go limerent, like, don't do that right now. And I can really only do it if there's a specific person that I'm thinking about. But the way that she says here, like, those fantasies aren't even there anymore. I'm heartbroken over no one. I can't even picture somebody to daydream about, to have ridiculous fantasies about. There's nobody there. And so in the times in between, when I meet somebody that I find interesting and attractive, in the in-between times where there's nobody, it is a very strange, empty feeling where, oh, there is no hope. I can't even imagine falling in love or anyone falling in love with me or ever having this romance that I dream of, this love of my life, kind of partnership. I think she just captured that really well there. The structure of what I wish for and the images that usually come together for me to be happy have to change now. But what am I supposed to do with all the parts of my heart that are only there to be given? What am I supposed to do with all of this nothing that I see? Those parts of the heart, they really aren't for me. They are not for my home or my body or my self-love. They are for you, and wherever you are too unknown to be in my daydream. You are on the fringe of my wish for someone to wish for. You are in another country of the heart. You are on the very outskirts of the edge of where my waves hit. You are on a beach on the other side of another world. And that's what it feels like to think there's got to be somebody out there for me. There has to be. But my God, I don't think I'll ever find them. And so what do I do? How do I let go of the romantic part of me? How do I let go of this part that I find so essential and important to who I am? how do I say, that part is dead now and it won't play a part in my life moving forward. And it just feels wrong to kill that part off. But love is one of the few things that we have absolutely no control over because it involves another person, and them having mutual feelings. So it's not like, going to the gym and meeting our goals, and like as long as we're consistent, then we'll see progress. It's not like writing a book where if you just put a sentence down every day, it'll happen. You cannot make love happen. So, yeah. So what do you do? How do you reconcile that? What do you do with that part of yourself that believes that you're meant for love and it's just not coming for you? Okay, I want to read this whole page. God, this video is going to be so long. When my beliefs float my spirit on the sea, I imagine the depths beneath me, and all of the options for life in there. I can feel with relief the wideness of the sea. I can remember that things from faraway locations wash up right on your private wedge of sand and present themselves as yours right away. But I have had my heart broken once again, and I am exhausted, and I have forgotten that I can still give to myself. And so I sit here with waves crashing and repeating, and all I can do is wait and hope that eventually my sea will cough up some shell with a shape like a swirl of sound, and I will look anew, and I will listen better. But this afternoon it is this. The day at the beach was never so dull as it is now. Without a person to love, I am too full of what must be let out, and while at least I can use my mind enough to bring out this image of the sea, it feels like life is the beach in the winter. It feels like life is the beach where I used to go with someone who died. It feels almost wrong to be here. I feel like I am wearing a bikini and the weather is 40 degrees and the sky is that screaming winter white, and it is all I can do to just stand still and try to remember why I am here. It is all I can do to not pack up and leave. What a poetic way to talk about wanting to just give up. I have always known that I would die for love. I think I am dying while or because of waiting for it. I cannot bear how it feels like a surging throng of beats and yells and gasps inside of my small form. I have wondered on many occasions if any confidence I have is just a weird side effect of foolishness, and I live under the weight of so much embarrassment, I'm surprised the top of my head isn't flat. It's a great visual of what it feels like to just live with chronic embarrassment, just feeling like such a fool all the time, and wondering, is my confidence earned? Is it real? Or am I just ridiculous and everybody knows it? I'm stuck here in a cycle, and I am getting older, but I am not growing up, and my heart is getting soft, dark spots on it like a fruit that has gone bad or is soft because too many hands have squeezed it, but then put it back down, not because I am not ready, but because they were not ready for my type of fruity flesh. I felt so ripe and sweet. What was off? The truth is, I was forcing myself into people's mouths. I jumped out of their hands and into their mouths, and I yelled, "Eat me!" way before they even had a chance to get hungry and notice me and lift me up. And that's from one of my favorite chapters, I Died, Valentine's Day, and that is the one that my friend sent me months ago. I think we're going to read a couple things from here, actually. I stood on a spot between the bathroom and bedroom, and I said to the bossy eternal cosmos, "Well, just let me go. Just let me go. I am tired of sinking down to a lower place to be with men. I am tired of throwing a tarp over some of my personality so that the shape of my identity suits some gross man a little better for whatever shitty things he needs to do in order to keep his boring identity erect and supreme. I have many grievances and no place to set them down, and I am cranky from having to shoulder this burden of reactions like I am a fucking ox that should carry your unsellable wares. I am tired of buying my own flowers. I am tired of having to hold my breath through Valentine's Day the way you do when you drive past a graveyard. I want a Valentine from a normal person who is horny. I want a prize for how well I can love. I want to be a prize for love." Yeah, this whole chapter is, it's only a few pages, and it's just exactly what I want to say and how I feel. And this is one of those moments in the book where it felt like she was literally altering my brain, and I went, oh, I don't have to change myself and lower myself to be with men. It just doesn't have to be that way. I can simply not do it. And it just, when you're really in the thick of it and like so desperate for love, you forget that you matter, that you are an individual, a person with a life and thoughts and feelings, and if somebody is ghosting you or treating you like you mean nothing, that is on them. It has nothing to do with you. So I just loved that little rant. Let's see, I can't figure out where. Okay. And I took pity on the little dog and gathered him to my chest with my rotten grocery store plum heart, and I used my last bit of whatever I had to just make myself die. I turned into the only circle of light, and it didn't even feel great or like liberation, and I just floated up and lightly bonked the ceiling, and then I sank back down and settled on the floor, and I just admitted that I love Valentine's Day, and nobody loves me, and I'm horny, and nobody is here, and I just died. So this is one of those chapters where it's obviously magical realism, and I think she uses it to such great effect as a metaphor for how a broken heart feels and how there can be death without actual dying. Each time I fall in love, I feel fear that the world won't let me be in the world with it, that I either have to pick the world or the love. That's really well said. I either have to pick the world or the love. How many of us get so caught up when we have feelings for somebody that we absolutely forget what everything else is. It's like there's nothing else. We forget how flowers smell and how coffee tastes and how it feels to read a good line in a good book and what it's like to get a wonderful night's sleep and wake up feeling refreshed and how it feels to look in the mirror and love who we see. We focus so much on this other person who often, because true love is so rare, often does not share the exact same feelings. I'm going to take so many sips of water. Okay. She's talking about her parents' house. I love the house, and every time I go out into the world and get my heart busted up, I retreat back to the old, ghostly house in Milton, hoping to become myself again, and to have one more chance, just one more chance to share my heart and to share it successfully enough that if I become a ghost one day, there's at least another ghost right beside me, and I have its heart and it has mine, and we have the world together. This is what I believe can happen to me. I don't know if I believe in ghosts, but I believe that this can happen to me. I'm realizing now that this book is not all about yearning for love and healing from not being loved, but it seems to be a lot of what I tabbed in here, so that's interesting. Oh, okay. This is probably one of my favorite quotes. I don't know if it's my favorite, I can't remember. But this is the quote that I saw just like randomly on Instagram somewhere. Somebody had like used it or plagiarized it or something, and I had no clue what it was from. I thought it was a poem. So there's this chapter where she's writing these imaginary dating profile bios, and she says, "I am supposed to be touched. I can't wait to find the person who will come into the kitchen just to smell my neck and get behind me and hug me and breathe me in and make me turn around and make me kiss his face and put my hands in his hair even with my soapy dishwater drips. I am a lovely woman who will come into my kitchen and be hungry for me." Who will come into my kitchen and be hungry for me? That is just one of the most gorgeous lines I've ever read. And evokes such a profound sense of yearning and both of self-love and wanting another person to love us. Because even though it's hard sometimes, it is perfectly possible to recognize how lovely and wonderful we are, and to want to share that with somebody else, and only share it with somebody who also fully recognizes it. Absolutely loved that paragraph. But are you there? Please come close enough so that I can see you, and then I will try to do the rest for both of us, because I have not learned my lesson yet, and do not possess the faith to believe in the partner who does his side of the thing. But I would love it if you would, because that would be dreamy, and then I would also have that faith. I will give you every single treat. Just makes me think of all the bare minimum men. That seems to be a thing that, like, a lot of my friends are talking about lately. Just these men that are doing nothing but, like, sending one text a month to keep you on the hook. I said the other day that I love when a man uses my name, just says my name. And my friend said, my God, the bar is so low. And yeah, it is sometimes, and that's terrible. And I can feel this book making me want to be better about that and not accept the bare minimum, because it's ridiculous. For a while, I would have trench times when everything felt like blank paper, and I couldn't feel anyone's heart pointed even in my direction, let alone anyone loving me or wanting me to be around. Very boring, very lonely, very tired, again. It was hard to feel anything except I am not one of the creatures who will experience anything precious. Trench times were shallow, heavy, and mean. I couldn't get into the actual morning because I was stuck underneath the weight of my days. Oh, perfect. Chef's kiss, beautiful little paragraph to describe depression and feeling that nothing good will ever happen to us, and for me thinking love simply won't happen for me. I've said it so many times recently that I get so sick of people telling me it'll happen for you, of course it'll happen for you, and I'm like, I mean, I'm 30 and it's like I haven't even come close, and it really is true and okay that it does not happen for everybody. You know, look around you. Poll everybody in their 40s and 50s and 60s. Did you ever find the love of your life? A lot would say no. A lot of people are single, and that is fine, and it's a valid way to live, and we're not incomplete if we don't have a partner. But yeah, I've been mean to myself saying that I'm not worthy, but it's not that. It's just, it might not happen for me, and that's fine. So she has this wonderful dream about a dog, and she's thinking, like, it's not real, so I shouldn't be happy about it. And she says this thing inside of her. It says, your feelings of joy are not fake if you are having them. You are allowed to feel joy about sitting on the lap of a dog in a dream and taking a ride in a van with open windows and sharing a seatbelt. God damn it, this is a gift from your fucking soul. Self-generate, don't you see? Break the trap, break the trap, break the trap. Leave the trench. Activate the bomb in yourself and bust out. Trick yourself out of that trench in any way you can. I love that feeling of deciding to break the cycle of depression by accepting nice things about ourselves, nice things that our subconscious comes up to give us. Like, here on a plate, here is a little gift, a little treat for you, from you. I hope it makes you feel better, and we need to learn how to accept that and stop pushing it away and saying, I don't deserve that. I only deserve bad things. Stay away from me. It doesn't have to be that way. This is this chapter about a man mansplaining, and she says, but then after saying that, oh wait, he is not even close to correct, that the fact he is pontificating and instructing and not actually conversing is a sign that he does not even remotely understand. But then after saying that, I would have to weather the storm of his humiliation and frustration and somehow end up feeling bad about myself, like I should have been gentler and treated him like a child who simply doesn't know any better. Women are trained to be gentle with everyone and with men, to be so gentle and kind, and because of that, they get away with things like mansplaining our feelings back to us as if we don't know what they are, as if we haven't lived all these years in our life, in our head, and know perfectly well what our feelings are. There's a lot of great stuff in here about misogyny, and I noticed in the reviews of this book that there are some really fragile men who can't handle that, and think that she shouldn't have talked about it. And all I can say is it must be so, so very nice to not have to deal with misogyny, to not have it affect you in any way at all, and you just get to live your life and not think about it. It must be really nice for you. I started to understand how to move away from near misses with dead pink meat and into the live animal world, getting wild and gentle kisses from better animals. Instead of asking the old questions that sounded like, what is wrong with me, I would start asking important questions like, what if I only dreamed gardens? What if I ate carrots because what if I were a pleasant rabbit? What if I got a crown for doing nothing but being who I am? What if even just one plant said hi to me, or a tree bashfully bowed as I walked by? What if my dog knew what I meant when I waved to him? What if I could always be a little bit on this island in my mind? What if I could always be a little bit naked, a little bit kissing everything, an unplundered trove of my own love? This one snapped me out of whatever spiral I was in. I think this is where I took a couple naps while I was reading this. It was transcendent. I like to read outside in the catio and kind of fall asleep while I'm reading, and I fell into this nap and woke up new, feeling the world, seeing the world, hearing the world in a completely different way. And that paragraph is one of the things that did that to me. What if we just saw everything completely different from how we're seeing it right now? This is called A Prayer. As the image of myself becomes sharper in my brain and more precious, I feel less afraid that someone else will erase me by denying me love. And that is a wonderful point. As long as we see how precious we actually are and hold ourselves that way and believe it, how in the world could somebody's opinion ever erase that? How could it be valid? How could we deny ourselves the love that we deserve to get from ourselves just because somebody else doesn't love us? I was born on March 25th, at the outermost reaches of winter, between the end of cold and the beginning of thaw that spreads out into warmth and richness that is both inevitable and requires patience. I was born at exactly the time when anything alive is saying, let me burst, let me get to the most beautiful and ornamental and essential version of what I can be. Give me space to bloom and present the blossoms to an ecosystem that will drink from my nectar, celebrate my petals, sniff me, pick me, take me home, make your body smell like my lovely scent. I was born during the moment in the cycle when almost every single live thing is inclined to mate, to grow, to point a snout skyward and sniff the air, to create. In the very grooves of my being is the desire to bust open and the certainty that it is right to begin to live again, even after long periods of cold and darkness. Goosebumps. While I was reading this chapter, I was just thinking, me too, because I was born March 21st, which is, if you look at the calendar, sometimes the first day of spring. And so this idea of being born right when everything is breaking out of the soil and everything new is happening and it is like this rebirth. To be born at that time, I think, is very special. And I love the way that she described it, and I think it's cool that our birthday is only 4 days apart. I liked this bit about loving yourself. Write a note of encouragement to yourself and put it in a drawer that you use a lot. Later in the day, when you go to get a spoon or a sweater, there it will be, looking up at you saying something like, you are a little sweetheart, aren't you? Or something like that. It will be good to feel a little embarrassed by the heightened emotion of the note. It will be good to have a treat and a non-gross secret, like this one. I thought that was so cute. Imagine saying stuff like that to yourself. You are a little sweetheart, aren't you? And not the awful stuff that I've said for years and years. I used to have a list. After I had my heart broken once, I had this list in a journal where I wrote every single awful thing that I believed about myself. I am this, I am that. And it is horrific to look back at. And awful that I let one person make me believe all of that about myself. So I loved this whole chapter to Norway. And it evoked this feeling of being a single woman among friends, particularly in like a different setting than what you're used to. It feels very vulnerable and good and independent. And I guess it depends on where you're at mentally, because sometimes it feels too vulnerable and like you kind of don't exist because you're not part of one of these couples. Like I've heard people say they get invited on vacations, and because they're the single friend, they're always relegated to the couch, and it's just assumed you're going to sleep on the couch and you're going to be fine with that. And it's like, no, actually, I can say no to that. You know, I'd like a bed like a real person, and just because I don't have a partner doesn't mean I shouldn't have a bed to sleep in. Every time I'm in an airport alone, I have to remind myself that I am neither an orphan nor a plain virgin governess on her way to be insulted by the competitive and haughty family of her disagreeable ward. I just love the way that she takes these situations, that there's something weird and off feeling about these situations, like being alone in an airport, and she puts it into words so perfectly. Like, I would not have known how to say that, but it is very that. It's I am not an orphan, and I'm not a plain virgin governess going somewhere like to be chastised. It really can feel like that. I was just alone in an airport recently, and I had actually, to be quite frank, had a panic attack. And it's not like I don't travel often, and it's not like I haven't solo traveled extensively, but this particular time, everything just like came at me and made me break down going through security. And my flight got delayed 6 hours. I was worried about my mom driving the crazy highways in Dallas. And I was flying back by myself, and I was just like, I can't do this. I don't have any idea where I am. This airport sucks. And the security guy had to ask me if I was okay and tell me to take some deep breaths. So I cried. It made me cry more, because when somebody cares, I cry a lot. I love being alone in airports and sitting at the bar and drinking a pint of beer. I do not get glasses of wine because that seems sad to me, and even when I am happy, it sometimes happens that the slightest things can tip me into non-specific sadness when I am alone. A glass of white wine would be devastating, for example, if I were alone. That's the kind of thing that would make me feel, again, for example, very divorced. And it's true, there are so many just little things that seem innocuous that can give us this deep, like, oh, I have the sadness of the whole world in my heart right now, and I don't really know why. Like, I'm just getting a napkin from a napkin dispenser. Why is this devastating? Oh my lord. Still so much to go. Oh my god, my camera. I said goodbye to all of them, and I felt very odd. Something had happened, but nothing had happened, really. Nobody touched me, but it felt like I had been touched. Beautiful way to say that. After leaving this experience with her friends, that's how it felt. That's where my house was born. It was born as a million, billion small, medium, and large live things, and then someone came and got some of those many live things and made them into pieces of an anticipated whole, and then all of that became my house. And for over 100 years, people lived in the house. I don't know who died here, or how many people might have been here at once sleeping in the rooms. I don't know what soups might have been made in the kitchen, or if there were ever robbers, or maybe a surprise party, or where the sex happened, or if there were things like a bird in a bird cage or a piano in the living room. I love the way she talks about houses. You all know how I feel about houses and history and interior design. I love just the magic of homes and houses and how she evoked that in that paragraph. I hired a woman named Kathleen to come and make a fence around my house so that I could be safe in a self-imposed pen, like an old goose or a young pig, like both, really. that sentence stood out to me because the first thing I did when I moved into my new house a few years ago was to have a fence built. And I started to realize over time, I think I'm the only person who lives alone on my street. And, the first few things I did, get an alarm system, build a fence, hang curtains, I felt like I was shutting myself in and protecting myself. And of course, these things are necessary in this world, but it felt very symbolic. And so this thing that, is really useful and necessary for many reasons, getting a fence, it is strange how it can make us feel like we're in a self-imposed pen, like an old goose or a young pig. And then there are so many parts in this chapter. This is called Kathleen/Dogflower Face, where I just thought about like how it never occurs to us what we can have in this life and what we are allowed to have and to dream for. So let's get into that. There are so many things I want to pull out here. I pointed at the blue hill flowers and asked her, "Can I have that kind?" She told me that I could certainly have it, and then very seriously she said, "The only thing is that dogs love to smell the blossoms and they're actually very sticky, so your dog will have flowers on his face and I don't know if you'd like that." I would like that, I told her. What I didn't tell her was that when she asked me that question about flowers on my dog's face, she showed me that a legitimate option for experience, a true one that is real and is deeply concerned with beauty, could be mine. This was my home and my world, and the future was all geared up and ready for pleasure, and we were getting specific. Do you or do you not want flowers that stick to a dog's face? Yes or no? If yes, I was a citizen of the world of breezes and sticky dog face flower. With every small choice, the world was emerging. What would I like from all of it? I didn't tell Kathleen how dear it was to me that she told me the sticky flower fact in total earnestness. I didn't tell her that even though everything about me really points to liking things like flowers on animals' faces, I was pleased that she did not assume. I was pleased that she made sure, because in making sure, Kathleen gave me the opportunity to say out loud to another person that I would like my old dog to have flowers stuck to his face. And when I said it out loud that yes, I would like that, I knew it was true. Then I admired myself. What's more, I felt tenderness about my personality and my choices for delight. I said who I was on my land. Oh, I said who I was on my land. Imagine that, standing true in who we are and just declaring it and feeling great about it and admiring ourselves and our capacity for enjoying beauty and loving life. I didn't tell her that she was making me more than one garden, one outer, one inner. I was woozy as I watched a space open up inside of my inner me garden, space that would be private just for me, in which I could observe myself and be private as I gazed upon myself. I didn't tell her, "Hey Kathleen, you've revealed yourself to be a woman of wonderful character." Rather than being unconsciously lazy and telling me something, she had reached out and grabbed a moment. No, she did not miss the moment, this woman Kathleen. She asked a question and so much bloomed and the plants weren't even there yet. What I didn't say because I selfishly wanted to keep the sweet sap of the moment swelling inside myself undiluted was, actually, more than anything, I would like my dog to have small blue flowers stuck to his small face as often as possible, and now that you mention it, I want this more than most things that I want, but most of the things that I want are like this thing, and it is a certain type of person who feels this way that I feel, and I'm proud to be one. And now I see that I must really not forget that the style of what I find beautiful is incredible to me, that it is incredible to feel lucky, to want what one wants, to be able to see the rings of yourself this way. And honestly, Kathleen, I am dead serious on this one. Gorgeous. I've never been so hydrated. So yes, it has been a hard time and nobody could say differently, but it occurs to me as this long day ends, and I can hardly make myself stay up past 6 p.m. because I'm too busted up in my heart, because my brain has the posture of an old couch, because I try to imagine the blood in my arms and all I can imagine is air being blasted through pipes made of paper. It occurs to me as I fight so hard with myself that these cruel and persistent voices are the echoes of trauma from the times when people treated me like I am now treating myself. And that perhaps it is possible to close an inner door and shut out voices that are not mine. In the last light of a long day, I sit on a chair on my porch and watch the sky drain colors down and out, and I realize I want to hear my voice and only mine, not the voice of my voice within a cacophony of old pains, just mine, now. And then, at the end of this day, in the start of another night, at the first lip lick of this appetite for hearing myself clearly, it really hits me. I never really want to argue with anyone ever again, nor am I under any sort of obligation to do so. I love this feeling of self-respect that she's coming to. And here in this part, it occurs to me that if anyone ever bullies me again, I will warn them one time, but probably start to stop loving them, and that if they do it again, I will have my final answer that a person who does that to me does not love me, and then I will explain that their behavior has made it clear to me that I want to leave, and although I will have been clear, I will have been respectful, I will leave without participating in condemnation, I will go without digging deeper into the dark. How beautiful to be able to leave a person in a situation that is not good for you, and to do it without digging into what is wrong with me, why couldn't I make this work? I am sitting in the room in my house where I've put the television in a big wicker cabinet so that I don't ever have to see the television. I enjoy watching the TV, but also I think that it is an ugly object. I cringe when I see the TV loitering like a dumbass, incorrect in its placement next to my books and tender hanging plants and thoughtfully chosen textiles. I just said, me too. That's so me. People come into my house and it takes them a minute, but they're like, you don't have a TV. I haven't had a TV in something like 10 years. I just can't stand to look at them. They are so god-awful ugly. So I have a laptop that I open up to watch sometimes, and I have a projector screen when I really feel like getting fancy. But I love this thing that Christine McConnell created. She carved a cabinet for her television, and it was just beautiful. Okay, this chapter is where I laughed and also was very upset. This is on the Code of Hammurabi. And I was tabbing a lot of things clearly, but it just starts off very funny talking about how she's eating Thai food. It says, I have Thai food that is so spicy that I start to sweat and breathe in and out like how ladies do Lamaze breathing while having a baby in a movie in the 1980s. I ordered it with the vague notion that it might be really nice to just blow my colon out once and for all. It might be nice to live life as a big, empty, whistling network of inner caves. But now I see that I am just bloating myself with salt and fusing my insides together with oils that I am not genetically inclined to process. I think if my ancient dog gets even a lick of this curry, his hair fur will fall off of his body like when you blow on a dandelion. And then he will throw up a small trickle of yellow, and then he will die. And then I will have nobody at all, including the many different men who have held this dog, to whom I have said, this is amazing, he really likes you, when what I really mean is, you are holding my dog. I can't tell if you are nice or gross yet. We'll see. Just what a roller coaster of a page. What an absolute roller coaster. So she takes this chapter as an opportunity to talk about the documentary she watched about the Code of Hammurabi and how it is where patriarchy began and how it doesn't have to be that way. So the next few things are from that, and you can join me in being really upset. Would Teddy Roosevelt be a feminist? Would he like me or think I am a wimp? Were the Kennedys just really gross, like, with women? Yes, they were. It's not great when you think about it, what they were like with all of the actresses. It's gross. Why are so many men so gross, but still we say that they are heroes? And if we try to even talk about it with these men, they get incredibly upset and defensive and call us cruel or insecure, but really you can't have it both ways. You can't do the thing but then not want to ever discuss it. If you want to hide it, maybe it's not just because it is private, but because you know, you really do know, that it is gross. Civilizations flourished in the Fertile Crescent between the Tigris and the Euphrates. Some people must have ended up with more than other people because of the surplus of crops after they invented irrigation, and so then there was not only a class system but also greed, a new, toothy, fast-breathing, slick-thinking, not-sorry greed. And that really makes me sad to think about how the world could be, how we could all be sharing the bounty, and there wouldn't be class systems, and nobody would need to be above anybody else. regardless of anything, gender, anything. But here we go. So where there should have simply been an equal distribution of goods and general dedication toward community satisfaction and safety. Instead, greed came in and took a hold of a few key players, and these key players who were cold enough to look past questions of whether or not what they were doing was humane were men. Men did it, and they saw the women having babies out of their bodies, and they saw the babies growing up into what could be a workforce, and they decided to take a crucial and revolting step, which was to make women and children into property, and to condemn their own spirits and identities to be mostly defined by what happens to their property. I start to understand that before the greed event, lots of bad things had already occurred, killings and rapes and theft and abominations of all kinds, but these bad things were never harnessed into a system. And then, says this British woman, they were. I was made into a system. Somebody did it. He is not a mystery person. His name was Hammurabi, and he was a real man, and he did it. He said that he did it. It wasn't an admission. It was a declaration. He was proud. The Code of Hammurabi is the first evidence of legalized patriarchy. Does that send a shiver through your bones? Does that make you feel like we are currently ruled by fucking mummies who hate our mommies? Because that is what it is. When I encounter a proud misogynist or an unconscious one, or I see misogyny flare up in myself, I imagine this code sitting in the museum or sitting on a block being created far back in the past, and I say to myself that this can all go another way. I lie in my bed and I say, there was a start, and so there can be an end. And God, I hope that's true. If humanity started this awful mess, why can we not end it? And soon. Oh, I absolutely loved this part. So she's talking again about the castle in Norway that was made for a woman called Karen. Hundreds of years ago, a woman called Karen. And there are red geraniums there, and that's her favorite flower. In every window of the castle, in every single window on every single deep stone windowsill was a red geranium. My heart stopped, or maybe it jump-started. I saw those geraniums and I felt my wild call ring out into up there. I saw them and I was nothing but double doors to spirit, to everything, blasted open, tilted up. I thought, why would you not believe in this thing? Why would you not believe in such a small thing like putting this hardy red plant in your house? I had called for what I wanted based on who I was, and Karen's castle had given me a big blazing sign that said, yes, ma'am. So again, we should allow ourselves to want more, to believe that we can have more, and to not think that the things that we want are silly or ridiculous or too small. Like a good example, for a long time, I was tired of looking at my black fridge. I thought it was this kind of soul-sucking entity in the kitchen. It didn't make sense for it to be black in such a bright place, and I wanted a pink fridge. I wanted my fridge to be pink, and I told people, I think I'm going to paint my fridge, and some people had a response like, that's not going to work, or like, how could it possibly, like, nobody does that. But there were just enough YouTube videos to help me do it, and I did it, and I love it, and it looks amazing, and it's held up great. We can have these, I'm looking right now at a Cheryl Strayed book, Tiny Beautiful Things, and I'm actually going to a writing workshop with her. I'm leaving tomorrow for Massachusetts. I guess that's today when this video comes out. And that's going to be so great, to write with freaking Cheryl Strayed, who's really great at talking about the little things that make life absolutely worth living and that we should allow ourselves to enjoy, but we so often don't. Luckily, there is a supermarket in the present, and supermarkets please me. Luckily, I am of sound enough mind, even in my puckering tartness, to drive a car to the supermarket, buy egg yolk-colored daffodils and cream for my coffee, and get myself into a livelier tempo in general. I push the cart. I said things to myself like, stop looking for things to be sad about, that's not what it actually is anymore. And of course I was right. That's not exactly it. There is nothing sad anymore. There are only tiny and tart truths. I saw that I was wise to instruct myself in this way. So I said, and furthermore, start looking for eggs. I did. I found myself some eggs, and tender butterleaf lettuce, and a prissy endive, and some jokey Kirby cucumbers, and some standard butter, and a new giant olive oil because I was anticipating filling my mouth with salty, lemony, glistening leaves. I love the image of going to the grocery store and every little thing being so beautiful. I have that experience a lot, actually. I like the grocery store. I like to look at all of the things that I could create meals out of to nourish myself, and it is all for me because I'm living by myself. I'm the only person that I take care of, and I love myself, and I'm going to treat myself well and fuel myself with good things. And yeah, and I love eggs. I love buying the nicest, most pasture-raised eggs you can possibly get. It's just little joys like that that sometimes have the capability to snap us out of a bad place. Then again, it was certainly its own zone, and it was certainly disorienting to do this process of tart to sweet, because when I came home, I felt bananas. And just to see if I was onto something, I put on some music, and I put on the oven, and I threw some bananas into a batter. I'm sure you can't bake it all away, but you can transform the reality while still accepting the essential elements that make it what it is. You can make good smells in the place where you live, smells that are better than sitting around with stress breath and cigarette smoke. Who knows? Who knows how to do anything, but it's not nothing that I know all my feelings and I have trust in their changeable nature, and I am an expert at making treats out of tribulations. It is hard to see when you're in the absolute depths of depression, as I know firsthand, but these little things do actually make a difference if we allow ourselves to do them. And I know, because I've been saying until very recently, what is the point? There's no point in doing anything. It doesn't matter if I do something to make myself feel better, then I'm just hyper aware of how I'm doing something to feel better, when really my natural state is feeling like shit. But guess what? That is not the right way to think. Stop talking to yourself like that. Do all the little stupid things that make a difference. Even if they seem stupid, they're really not. I think about how we are both having our mornings and that they are equal. She's talking about waking up with her dog. I do feel it all and then some. I have just been kissing my own skin, but now I feel the wet water in the squirrel's mouth. I feel the swollen grapefruit bear its heaviness, its tear-shaped pods of sweetness and tartness in one pink liquid, capsule surrounded by membrane, covered in a thick pinky orange rind. I put myself in everything that I see, and I want it to put itself in me and watch that web of interaction spin out between us. Actually, sorry, that wasn't about the dog. That's a different part. But this is also a bit about connection, and connection with the universe, like seeing yourself in everything and everything in you, and I think that is such a beautiful paragraph to describe it. The magnolia blooms are so beautiful. The flowers are like fish in a tree. Sometimes do you ever get jealous of the plants that they only have to grow and not know about it, and they don't take anything personally? What can I do? I can only breathe in deeply. I can only bellow in a church that is deep inside of myself. I can only blast a shell-shaped horn that would shake down the oldest buildings. I can only leap for joy in my sacred inner caves and ring out the message, I am alive. I woke up again. I might as well be sprouting leaves. I might as well be covered in little clams. Look at me. Yes, I am a woman who woke up and got dressed and sat down here, but look again. Look from the seat inside of myself that I let you sit in for just a few moments. I am a woman in dessert tones at the start of a bleeding little day. Mouthful of clover. Oh, holy shit, I am a big fat fruit on a tree, dangling in the air just so, living in a state of fullness and exhilaration. I am connected to eternity, and I am a part of everything, and although I am with all of it, I am still different from anything and everything. I am an example of a specific way of spending time and feeling existence in this world. That was worth reading the whole page. I love how she just like amps it up and up and up with the, oh holy shit, I'm a big fat fruit on a tree. This absolute divine love for life that she exudes is so contagious. Okay, now here's the bit about the dog. He has spoken the most important thing, which is, "Here we are again in a new day. I want you to see it with me." And this description above is an example of how you can gaze on yourself with love when nobody is there to do that for you, and how you can make it so that your own loving gaze is truthful and not obsessive or vain. You can wake up like this, be this, and tell yourself that this is an example of how a day can start on Earth. I love this, how she wakes up like with her dog's paw on her palm. And, you know, I often wake up holding my cats, holding their tail, holding their paw. I wake up and the first thing my eyes see is them. And it's just a great part about the purity of love from an animal. So there's this bit about going to weddings alone. I spent the wedding weekend with couples. I was not sorry for myself. I was just fine. I was more disturbed that it seems impossible to me that I will ever find someone for myself after all of this. I am bitter sometimes. I think, why should I have to sleep alone? What is wrong with me? What happened to my allure, which in my last decade seemed almost problematic? Okay. So I go to a lot of weddings alone. Alone as in not part of a couple. I just did that recently, and it's a very specific kind of feeling because you're really celebrating love, and to feel like there's no hope for you in that regard it's just weird. You kind of feel like an alien on the fringe of this celebration. The reason I think it will be hard to meet someone who I'm actually interested in is that I cannot stand these preliminary moments when you can't deeply know each other and be together forever. Oh, how I relate to that. I hate the small talk, getting to know you, can't talk from the depths of our soul parts of relationship. The stage where you say, "I'm talking to so-and-so," God, I hate that. When can we just, dedicate ourselves to forever and discovering each other's very essence? Like, are we going to merge souls or not? What are we doing here? She has this great, spurred by the being at a wedding alone thing, she has this great talk with herself. You only force intimacy because you have a hungry heart and you have been displaced. It's a condition of the heart based on your situation. You are looking for a place in another. I'm tired of looking for a place in another. I know. That's why I'm here. I found the place where you're supposed to be. I figured it out, and it leads to all the other places you will ever want to go. Oh, this part is so profound, the way that she's talking to herself. I woke up the day after the wedding and I was in a state of contentment. I had breakfast in a clean dress by myself in the hotel. I wasn't thinking about alone and fine with that versus alone and devastated. I was working on new terms with my deep self. Love that. To get to the point where you're not thinking about alone and fine with that versus alone and devastated, and just being you, existing, living your life. And it doesn't have to be categorized as one of those things. And I do have moments like that a lot more recently than I used to, and it's wonderful. So she finds this peace with herself and this, I love it. Repeat this in your head. There are no odds to beat anymore, just some real junk to dump. You dump your junk. After you dump it, you don't sort it in your mind. You dump your junk and you walk away. You wear all one color on the outside, swirl with every color on the inside. You walk forward. You keep your head angled up so that you see over the fray. You protect yourself and all the little weirds that make up who you are. We sat there and had the coffee and eggs in the in-between world, the often scary but necessary space between old patterns and new behaviors. I didn't know it then, but I'd made it to the Holy Land. Okay, that part was very important. So this is in this chapter called Blue Hour, and so is what I just read, but I talk so much about blue hour. I use that term all the time. It's that time right before sunrise when everything is blue and there is no orange yet. And the fact that she talks about it, I'm like, ugh, we are the same. I am here in this time of the morning when nobody is apparent but myself. I now look so forward to this time before the world is on. I wake up and I am tired, but once my feet hit the ground and I know that it is still very early, I feel relief. This is also beautiful. My small, tidy breathing, soft thighs on the chair, my hands touching each other, my eyes open and steady, my life. I probably cried at that part, I can't remember. This image of being in the morning when it feels like the rest of the world is still asleep, but the birds are kind of going off. And you can see everything very clearly. And the way she says, my hands touching each other, like, you're never really alone. You are a person there with yourself all the time. And the way that she recognizes her breathing, her thighs on the chair, and that this is her life. This is our life. This can never be given away. It's always ours. It just felt so good to read that. I am a citizen of many dimensions, and now I slip between them easily. I never slip away from myself by simplifying myself. I can't become smaller to fit into a crouching love in somebody else's meager world. I don't do that anymore. I have calmed down. I have consolidated. I have come through the reckoning that I required. Beautiful. I have a place in the shifts. I don't have to wrangle intimacy anymore because I am engaging with it constantly, with the intimacy within, so that I can be a part of this chill flux. I didn't feel like this before when I was more scared, but now I wake up when the dead are walking their last loops and the newest drops of dew are pouting on the persimmons. I don't have to wait to be here anymore. An animal like me lives all the time, everywhere. I didn't feel it before, but now I do. All of these times, the hours where you can't see anything and the ones where you can see your whole form and all of the ways that the shapes and shadows fall in between, these are all hours during which I have given myself permission to keep time. I am that mysterious stranger that I hoped to meet. I met her at a dark dance. We came here to live together until I could stay by myself. The place is here. The time is now. This is all my lifetime. I'm gonna cry. Hang on a second. Checking so that my alarm doesn't go off. Okay. Oh. The place is here. The time is now. This is all my lifetime. I think this is the most important thing, and that's the last line in the book, except for this last little chapter. But this is the most important thing to get out of this, that our life is happening now, and it belongs to us. So everything that we could dredge up from the past and all the ways that we've been hurt and the ways that people have decided not to love us or recognize us for who we are, those are not part of the present, and they don't have to rule the rest of our lives. We ultimately have power over the way we feel about ourselves. And if you know me, you know that that is a big deal for me to say that. And it's going to take a while to stop feeling like a bit of a fraud for saying that, because I have been so freaking mean to myself for my entire life, and I don't want to do it anymore. I'm tired, and I'm energized, and I love myself, and nobody's going to take that away. And reading this book, I've never felt such a strong reminder that this is my life, and it is beautiful, and it is mine, and it doesn't belong to anybody else. And it can't belong to them. Even when I try to give someone my heart, ultimately, it cannot belong to them. It is mine. And what I choose to give to people doesn't take away from who I am. And I can always get back those parts of myself. If I'm sharing them, they're still mine at the end of the day. And there's nobody in this world that can take away our essence. I can't remember, what was that line she said about like having to choose between the world and the love? And like, ooh, I remember. There's that one really short line. As the image of myself becomes sharper in my brain and more precious, I feel less afraid that someone else will erase me by denying me love. Nothing can erase you. And even if you're like me and you love hard and you love strong and you get your heart all busted up all the time and battered and walked over and broken, and it feels like that somehow reflects on you, it doesn't. And nobody has the power to erase you. And if there are little things that you enjoy them, and don't mock yourself for enjoying them. I have done that to myself so much. Told myself that everything I do in my life is just a placeholder until I can find love, until somebody can validate me and make me feel worthy by accepting my love and giving me theirs in return. It just simply isn't accurate, and if I live the rest of my life without romantic love, I will be okay. I have me, and that is the most important thing, and anything beyond that, it's a bonus. It is a cherry on a cake. I will still eat a delicious entire cake and feel full and happy and wonderful without the cherry on top. If there's a cherry on top, I'll go, oh, a little treat. And I hope that after reading this and talking about it, you can feel that way about your life as well. It is complete, it is a delicious cake, and anything that is added to it is just a sweet little cherry. So please, please read this book. I'm thinking about not even sending this copy back because maybe I'll let people borrow it. This was so profoundly wonderful. I love it. I can't recommend it enough, obviously, because we just talked for more than an hour. And yeah, I'm excited to go to this writing workshop this weekend, and I know that I'm going to learn a lot and think a lot, and I'm glad that I'm in this headspace going into it. Lots of good things to come in this lifetime. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Until then, happy reading.